first person to make a noise is in the picture.
Good morning! It's Sunday morning and let's use this little guy, our slow cooker, and get on some chicken noodle soup. This is such a goodie if someone's not feeling great, but it's also such a goodie to have in your fridge for the whole week. I absolutely love this soup and I'm actually using it as a base for one of my brand new recipes in my paid course. You can access that now through the link up here. And on Instagram, it's the link in the bio. I'm using it with gorgeous Asian flavours because this trick of whacking your whole chook in your slow cooker is so good. I mean, to buy a whole chook, it's so much cheaper. And the beauty of it is because you've got your bones and your meat, connective tissues, all that deliciousness in there, you will get such a flavourful soup. So much more than just using, say, a chicken breast. You can absolutely do that. And if you want to make this soup and you're watching, you're like, you know what, I could do that, but I've got, drumsticks in the fridge. Use them. I've only got wings in the freezer. Great, chuck them in. I've only got chicken breasts. I don't care, get that in as well. Whatever works for you. But grab a whole chook, grab your slow cooker, and let me show you exactly what we're going to do. First things first is some onion. Now, you have two options here. You can spend a few extra minutes, you're probably talking 5, and brown these up. The beauty of that is that they'll get a gorgeous colour on them. They'll be a bit more caramelised, so they're not as peppery, and they are yum. Or your second option is that you might be a little bit busy, a bit like me. I've got to get my kids to all kinds of play dates and things this morning. Is I am just going to dump them straight in the cooker. I did loads and loads of recipe testing for this paid course that I've got my moment of does it taste any different when I whack the onion in as is and the garlic and even the meats, or do I need to brown them off? I found not too much of a difference, and that's really cool because it lends itself to that whole idea of just chucking stuff in and running. The other option though that you could do, and this is something that in previous courses lots of the babes would get done, is they would chuck in, say, like 5 or 6 of these into their Thermomix blender, whichever one you've got, in the morning, on the weekend one day, and a whole heap of garlic, and they brown off, say, like 6 or 7 onions and with the garlic as well, and then just kept that in a container in the fridge. So when it came to each morning, what you could do with this chicken noodle soup now is they just ladled out, say, 2 or 3 spoonfuls of it. It was so cool to do it that way. Let me know, because actually I'm interested to hear. Grab your little comment up there. When you're putting stuff into the slow cooker, do you brown it? Or do you just sort of just chuck in? I'd be really interested to know. Okay, there's my onion. Here's a good size onion. You want a good size onion there. I am going to put him straight in the slow cooker. There we go. There's our first bit in. You can absolutely too, I've got to get my garlic out. Silly Betty. Some garlic right there. You could absolutely, if you're watching this and you're like, Stace, I don't want to cut all of this by hand, it's just not my jam. Use your blender. If you've got a fancy shredder, whatever it is, any of that will work really, really well. Okay. And I definitely found, I reckon this soup's been made, I'd probably say 5,000 times with people. It is just so well loved, and so many that if you've got little tricky babes that might love soup, is what you can I brown before cooking. Oh, but you have your slow cooker with a searing function. Yeah, that works so well, doesn't it? Is it those that tend to have trickier babes, but you really want to get this in, go ahead and grate these veggies, right? You could also at the end, and I'll talk you through in a little minute of what happens with that chook, is there's no reason that you couldn't blend it up at the end as well, your soup, and you'd be able to get it thicker there. Let's move on. So we've got 1 onion and we've got 5 cloves of garlic. I'm actually just going to put these 2 in because my cloves weren't very big. And I love that meaning where we measure garlic with our heart and not by essentials. It's a bit like butter, isn't it? Alright, let's get the garlic in. Okay, and now we get our carrot. Oh, those onions are potent. I'm just going to move that away from my face. And now onto a carrot. Now, the recipe in this free ebook that I got for you guys there that we're following along from, it only calls for 1 carrot. But my carrots are tiny. Look at how cute they are. They're super duper tiny. They've been wonderful for fermenting. But I'm just grabbing a few so that I can get enough carrot in there. And it's definitely my kids' veggie of choice. So I'm going to load it up. Just going to dice those. When you're cutting up for this soup, what I'd love you to think about, and I do think of this often with most of my meals, be it slow cooker or not, is how do I want this, like how am I serving it on the spoon? You know, are we sort of digging in and we're pulling it apart, all the meat? If we are, then I'm not even pedantic about, you know, overly dicing my onions and garlic, because they'll cook down, and if I'm pulling everything, it'll be, you know, fine. If I'm blending it into a soup, again, I'll keep it really chunky. But for this, I'm not going to be adjusting the veggies afterwards. So I want to think about how it's going to fit on my spoon. And so I encourage you to do that, especially as well if you've got some sweet tiny babes in your family. You probably want to do them really, really, really small so that they can easily get it on their spoon and keep munching it. Alright, check there. Yeah, so sorry, we've got 2 carrots, 2 zucchinis. So we'll get all this in. Let's start having a look at that. I mean, this already makes us feel healthy, doesn't it? When we start looking at this later, okay, in with some greens, in with some vibrant veggies. Yum! You can absolutely put other types of vegetables. Oh, I've got 2 tiny garlic left. In there, but what I would encourage you to think about is how they cook, like they go cooking. Like a tomato, it's not going to be great. Capsicum, they're pretty soft, like they're going to cook down. But something like pumpkin, it is going to be mushy, so it's going to change the colour of your soup, but that could be okay. Whereas something like a leek, yum, that would be beautiful if you want to add in some of that extra sweetness. That'd be great. There you could add in some parsnips, some chocos, but I would really steer clear of the 2 softer veggies. They won't be great. Okay, the next bit we're doing is 2 sticks of celery. I love celery in slow cooking, and I think every single shopping list that I've got in this 4-week course where I give you the recipes for the slow cooker, but then I take it a step further and I get them organised into a meal plan with a shopping list for you to follow. And I think nearly every week we do buy a little bit of celery, or the great thing about it is, like this celery stick for me, this is 3 weeks old and it's still wonderful. You absolutely use it up. You might have noticed too that I am not turning around and chuck in my veggie scraps. The great thing about slow cooking, and I love teaching you guys this stuff, is that there's kind of a beautiful ring of food use. So here I've got like the top of the carrots. If my carrots are a little bit sad looking, I would peel them, they're alright. I've even got like the garlic, the clove pieces here. All of this is a base for my broth, right? There's some broth here. This is what adds gorgeous flavour. This is what keeps it out of going to waste. We'll be able to slow cook this with some water and ideally meat bones, but if not, you can make a veggie one up the same way. But slow cooking, it just means we are pulling out all of those vitamins out of this, and it is just so delicious. It is so yum. I absolutely love doing that. So keep that in a bowl, and definitely you'll notice it in a lot of my videos in the slow cooker course, because you get one for each recipe. It's not like this, it's just one that's overhead and I sort of talk you through within sort of 30 seconds. That's it. My nan would say waste not, want not, that's it. Is that you'll see that I often have a little bowl to the side, and this will either give me motivation, and I will use this today because I'll actually use all the bones with this, and I'll run the cooker overnight. See what I'm doing there? Give me some love if you like this idea. Yeah, I'll be able to make another broth. But if I didn't want to do that today, I could whack this in the freezer in a bag, and when I've used these bones, I can grab those bones and put them in the freezer too. They can absolutely be frozen before you turn them into broth. It's just about keeping what you've got, and this is such a nice way to cook. I really love this idea. Okay, so the next thing we're going to get in there is our whole chook. I'm just going to turn around and do mine over the sink because I like to wash it. I do encourage you to wash your chook. I think it'll check for you too that you don't have any of the internal organs, gizzards and stuff, which if you do, I would really recommend that you pull them out. It does not make your soup taste great. This will also ensure, and it definitely happens once or twice every slow cooker course, is that someone accidentally leaves that little piece, you know, that sucks up the stuff. So if you give it a bit of a wash, you've checked in. Unfortunately, I have cooked a chook before. I was really excited when the gizzards were in there, and it was so bad. I'm sorry. I do eat pate and things like that, but it wasn't right. Personally, let me know in the comments if you love your chicken with gizzards in there. I wonder if it's different if it's roasted, but it was just too strong flavour and it ruined my soup, which made me really sad because my kids absolutely love this chicken soup. Alright, look at that sweet little guy. We're going to use the whole thing there. I am team that when we're using meat. So we put our chook in there, we've got all of our veggies. Now the next thing is you've got to get some thyme in there. In the recipe, I call for a whole bunch of thyme. But this is Stace and I'm real, and I didn't buy thyme at the market because I didn't get to the market because I didn't have time to see this thing. Oh, what a monkey. So, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a full tablespoon of the dried stuff. In a slow cooker, dried herbs are absolutely wonderful. Fresh herbs are also wonderful, but if they're woody, they're added at the start. So that's thyme and rosemary. Brilliant, get them in, job done. But when they're soft, like coriander and parsley, you want it to stir it through at the end. And so you'll definitely see that in this recipe. What do I call for there? A whole bunch of chives and half a bunch of parsley. This is how you add flavour into your standard meals, is adding in those extra fresh herbs, and it will take it from like a 6, 7 out of 10 to a 10. It is so yum. So in with my full tablespoon, just a touch more there, of thyme. We really love that. It's probably a tablespoon and a half, which actually No, that's okay. Settle down, sis. Sort of put the whole thing in. No. And then we want some salt and pepper. Be fairly generous with this. What do I call for? 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 of pepper. Like, this is how we do add flavour. And I know that sometimes, oh my gosh, am I putting all that in? But you're making this from scratch. You should see how much they put in when you buy this crazy stuff in the supermarkets, right? Like, that's the salt you're going to be worried about, all that processed foods. But for us, that's brilliant. When I used to make this, when my babes, I also make it when I had my daughter sort of 5 years ago, I would just leave the salt out. It was fine. She would have it as a baby, and this was such a nourishing, amazing first food for her because I would be able to pull the meat, and because it is so soft and succulent, she was able just to suck on it and sometimes sort of eat it, but the little veggies were wonderful. If you did want to be doing this and you've got like a baby led weaning, I would, if it was me, I'd actually put a carrot or 2 of the small ones that I had, or I'd chop it up, and I would lay those in this as well. I do it this way for you, but I'd add that in addition into here, and that would be something that is so wonderful for them to be able to chomp on, and you're cooking it in this amazing broth, which is just so beneficial for them. Okay, so what do we do next? How long will you cook this for? Okay, the minimum, so I'm going to be cooking it for 8 hours on low or high for 5 hours. You can put it in the oven as well, on the cooktop, probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, or your pressure cooker as well. All of those are in the ebook of all of those timings. Now we want to be topping this up with water or broth. Before we do, let's be smart about this. I'm going to grab it in my container, just like this, and let's top him up with the broth. So I use broth. Why? It's got more flavour. I'm getting in that extra gelatin, all the goodness that's in there. If you don't have any broth, don't worry, sweets, top him up with filtered water. Make sure that the water is decent, and that is wonderful. But I definitely get so much more flavour in this guy when I use broth. I am not quite full. You can see that there on Facebook. Let me show you on Insta. See there how my chook is coming out the top? Still, we don't want that. Like, that's not going to cook right. So I'm just going to fill this up because it's got little bits of it still in there. You will notice as well, my slow cooker is a gorgeous ceramic one, which means that the lid doesn't seal as heavy as a pressure cooker one. Oh, his legs are nearly covered. Which is wonderful because it lets out a little bit of air, like it lets out a little bit of steam, sorry, not air, which just means it doesn't end up tasting absolutely disgusting. And, I love these ways. So that's why I'm making sure, giving you that info, that my chook is covered with water because I know that it's going to evaporate like a little bit and we'll be good to go. So on he goes, and I'm just going to put it on the timer either on low or high. I'm going to be honest with you, like, I just feel amazing that we have this done at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is 1 o'clock. We're going to be having this for lunch, which I think would just be, like, I can't wait. I said to my husband, like, which one are you making today? He's like, oh my God, so good. Like, put it on high so that we can have that for lunch. There's something about it. Let me know in the comments if your crew's a little bit the same, but when you start having chicken soup, and a really good chicken soup, which is Stacey's recipe here, it just feels like the biggest cuddle, and it's so nourishing. So I'll whack that on in a sec, but I wanted to just talk you guys through a few more quick things, if I may. Yeah, it is so good there, Cheryl. Let me know, I'm going to stay on for a sec while I talk you guys through this. Pop me a comment, let me know, like, is this something you make regularly? Did you like the look of that? Have you got a question about your slow cooker or about the soup? Now, lemon. In the past, I've made this recipe and whacked a lemon in. It can be really tricky to source a lemon that is organic. We picked these ones up from our supermarket. We didn't actually get to the markets this weekend. These are all coated. Can you see how they're shiny, these lemons? You can feel them, they're a little bit waxy. If you're ever going to cook something and put that in, please don't in your cooker. The wax is going to come off. Don't put it in your oven, don't put it in your whole chook. It will not be great. If you've only got that option, what I would do is I'd literally just use a peeler and I would peel this guy off and then I'd chuck it in the chicken if you're going to roast it. But what we're going to do is instead of using one, maybe we'll use two, we'll see how we go, but the recipe does call for one, is I'll give them a really good roll out like this, and when it's done, I'll flavour it with the lemon then, and that's when I'm chucking in a whole bunch of chives and a whole bunch of parsley that I finely chopped. So if you're looking at this going, I don't know if that's going to be enough flavour, it isn't until, well actually, some people do like that, I shouldn't say that. I love a lot of flavour in mine, so I'm going to add that lemon, the chives, the parsley, and it will taste incredible, especially using broth as the base. Now, noodles. I pulled out a few different options from of what I've got. I am pretty prolific. You probably, being here, you would know that I am very much into whole foods. I want to be eating real stuff without crazy ingredients. So I thought I would just show you the options of chicken noodles, for the noodles for the soup that I find the best. I'm going to give you the hero one. The first is this guy. He's a gluten-free sweet potato noodle. These do not disintegrate, which means they do not soak up too much of the liquid and start pulling apart and then it all goes gross. I literally pull my chook out, I chuck that in, I put the lid back on, and the residual heat in the broth and in the cooker will cook these. These are so yum. My kids absolutely love them. They've got a really beautiful texture and they're gluten-free. They're cheap. You get them at Woolies, you get them at Coles. I buy a different brand from my independent supermarket as well, but what you're looking for is a sweet potato noodle. The ingredients is sweet potato starch, so that's basically a bit like a sweet potatoes and cassava and tapioca, arrowroot flours are all in the same family, so they're very soft. This does not have a lot of flavour to them, the noodles, but once they're in, then they sort of take that on, but they've got a beautiful soft texture. So they are by far, has anyone eaten these? Let me know in the comments if you guys have made those before. The second option is some wheat noodles. Now, you at the supermarket will probably find 95% of them have all kinds of preservatives in there, especially if you're looking at something that's yellow. Turn over and have a look at those preservatives. It's not great. These ones I adore. My kids love them. I love that they come in 4 little individual bits. I often will cook those in the morning for the kids, and I'll put like a broth on top for them, and they'll take that as a 2-minute noodle-esque. Where is the ingredients on this? Wheat flour, water, and salt. So these would be great. They will go in. Yeah, you'll get these at Woolies, I think, and Coles, but they're a bit trickier. So if you need to take a screen grab, do that. They're the Chang's Long Life ones, and they are just awesome. The other guys that will work really well is I love these organic udon noodles. In the slow cooker course you might have seen in my advertising is that there is the most amazing chicken noodles that we're actually making. So you put in a whole heap of chicken thighs and they're so yummy. You let them slow cook all day, you let the heat warm work, and then you cook up some noodles. Now you cook these ones separate. These you could put in here, however I have found personally that these tend to get, you know, the foam on top. Give me a thumbs up if you know what I'm talking about there, that you cooked noodles or pasta and it kind of gets that foamy stuff on top. I don't know why. Does anyone know why? Can you tell me why? But these are great. So these ones are wheat, flour, salt and water. Again, we're talking the same thing as these. These are a lot thicker in size. And if I was using these two, I would personally, if it was me, it's totally your call, but I'd probably cook these separate and I'd add them fresh to the bowl each day. Because they're wheat's wonderful and it's soft. It could end up going mushy through all of this. I haven't had that issue, and maybe, guys, if you've cooked this soup before, you can leave us a comment and let us know, like, do they stand up okay? But I promise you, like, this will last done up in the fridge for like 5-6 days, like how long you eat it for. And then the last one is, I grabbed these, again at my apprenticed shop at an independent supermarket, QE's, a chain here in Sydney that I love, or Harris Farm. These are egg noodles, so they're a bit like a pasta, and I'll just grab one out to show you. But that could be a way that you prefer to go with this soup. Cindy, they're like little pillows, aren't they cute? They're so cool. So I'm showing you these options because I want you to find ways in your family of foods to cook around that's going to make slow cooking easier, because I'm really honest with you guys, like, I believe in this way of cooking so much. I know that it just creates so much less stress in our lives. Me right now, like, I feel really great that I've got that on. It's exciting. I can smell that all day. It gives me that pep in my step that I know I've kind of got, like, the big thing at the end of the day, which is annoying that everyone wants to eat every day. Like, I understand that. But putting this on and knowing that it's that, I feel better. And it gives me energy. Like yesterday, you might have caught that I felt so energized by that beef brisket that we were having that I went ahead and made a gorgeous dessert. I made these beautiful golden syrup dumplings, thanks darling, with berries. I wouldn't normally do that, but because I had that motivation, because I could smell that it was done, we got there. So check out my slow cooker course. It's this time next week is Mother's Day. It's $100. It's not, I've kept it that price for the last 3 years, and obviously we know things have really increased in price, but I'm doing that because I want to be able to help so many of you. I know that when you start cooking these this way, it just feels easier. All right, I'm gonna go whack him on and get this into the freezer for my next lot of broth that I'm gonna make. You could go ahead and chop up your chives and your parsley. Something that I do encourage you to do a lot of is like prep if there's a second step. But this one, like, those veggies will be fine for me. You bought it for yourself for Mother's Day. That's so good. What a present. Yeah, awesome. Okay, have a great day, guys. See you soon. Oh, I posted